Hi BookTube, it's Gina and today is Tuesday and it is Tag Tuesday. I was tagged by Roz at Scallydandling About the Books to do a brand new tag that was created in honor of Jane Austen July this year from Tilly of Tilly's Shelf. This tag is called Jane Austen at Home, and it is all about the places in which Jane Austen characters live, and then books on your shelf that are related to that. So let's get started. Oh, the very first prompt, and I'm so glad she put this one first because I'm always forgetting to tag people. The first prompt is start by tagging someone who is participating in Jane Austen July. And for this one, I am going to tag Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading. I think Kelly actually may have already been tagged by Roz, but if not, I'm going to tag Kelly, or I'm going to tag her again because I know Kelly loves Jane Austen July and was the one who recommended and let me know that this was an event as a new booktuber that as a Jane Austen lover, I might like to participate in. And then I'm also going to tag the Personal Cozy Project 2021, who is, I love her channel. She's doing a lot of reading for Jane Austen July, and her videos about it are a lot of fun, and so I'm gonna tag you. All right, prompt number 1 is Mansfield Park. The grandeur of the house astonished, but could not console her. It sounds so much better when Roz and Tilly read these prompts off. Name a grand book that may or may not have been difficult to read. And for that, I am going to go with The Chunkster by A.S. Byatt, Babel Tower. Or is it Babel Tower? I never quite knew how to pronounce that. This book is so good. I loved this book. I read it probably when it first came out back in the mid-90s or so. And while it is, I would say, a highly intellectual book, A.S. Byatt is a very intellectual author. It was not a difficult read, possibly because I missed half of the things I was supposed to get. But I haven't read it in a long time. I maybe should revisit this one because I absolutely love it. Look at that cover. Isn't that pretty? This is the UK edition. This is one book that I actually own multiple copies of. I also have it in the American edition. Prompt number 2 is Barton Cottage. In comparison of Norland, it was poor and small indeed. Name a book about a household in difficult circumstances. And for this one, I'm going to go with a middle grade book, The Vanderbeekers. This is in the Hidden Garden. This is the third, I think, in the Vanderbeekers series. And these books, if you like middle grade, are wonderful about a large family that live in Harlem in a brownstone. They are always struggling a little bit for money. They're a working class family, and the kids are always just chipping in and helping out and running around. And in this book, of course, they find a hidden garden or decide to create a hidden garden. And it is just, that cover is beautiful too, but this is a wonderful, wonderful middle grade series that I absolutely love. Prompt number 3 is Heartfield. I believe few married women are half as much mistress of their husband's house as I am of Hartfield. Name a book that you feel entirely the mistress of. And I'll be honest, I don't really feel the mistress of any book entirely because I don't read them and kind of study them and remember them, but I'm going to go with the one that I've probably reread the most times, which is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. I read this for the first time when I was probably 9, and I have a wonderful, wonderful memory of the first time I read this book when I discovered it. And I've reread it many, many times since then, and I just love it. So for this one, I'm going with The Wind in the Willows. Prompt number 4, Fullerton. Now there was nothing so charming to her imagination as the unpretending comfort of a well-connected parsonage, something like Fullerton. Name a book containing a contented family. And for this one, I am going to go with Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher. What I love about this book and the family is that it is a found family. There are a couple people in it that are related, but the family that develops in this book is a bunch of stragglers who end up in a beautiful big house in the country and all just develop this family bond, which in some level I find a little bit strange. Rosamund Pilcher books always involve someone showing up at the door and not being able to leave for some reason and being invited in and then staying basically forever, which seems a little bit odd to me. But in this case, and in all cases, it's wonderful. I wish we still did that. If somebody knocked at my door, to be honest, I probably would hide and pretend not to be home, which would be a very short story indeed. So this one I'm going to go with Winter Solstice, a found family of a bunch of stragglers who are lost in some way and find each other and just build this wonderful family. Let's see. Question number 5, or prompt number 5, is Rosings Park. He declared he might almost have supposed himself in the small summer breakfast parlor at Rosings, a comparison that did not at first convey much gratification. Name a book that other books are constantly being compared to. And of course, for this one, I'm going to go for The Lord of the Rings. This is my copy of The Fellowship of the Ring. And because this really started the modern fantasy era, of course, books are compared to it. I think nothing compares to this. Really, these are so wonderful, but constantly being compared to The Lord of the Rings. Love these books. Prompt number 6, HMS Sloop Asp. Quite worn out and broken up, I was the last man who commanded her. Show us a book that is looking the worse for wear. And so this is a little bit of a cheat, but I'm going to go with my little copy of Persuasion, because this is the copy that I actually read. It's fairly beaten up, but it's still beautiful. I don't really have that many. I have a lot of old books, but I don't have a lot of books that I would say are in pretty rough shape, because I don't, either I get rid of them. I can't remember a book I threw away because it was in rough shape. I love to keep books that I'm sentimental about. Like Roz showed her original Pride and Prejudice copy that's fallen apart with the cover detached. It's fantastic. But I love, this is a beautiful Persuasion copy. So I'm going to go with that. Prompt number 7, Northanger Abbey. An abbey. Yes, it was delightful to be in an abbey, but she doubted as she looked, round the room, whether anything within her observation would have given her the consciousness. Name a book that wasn't as creepy or dramatic as you thought it would be. And sorry, I just shook the camera. I had to stretch out my leg because I'm sitting on my feet and starting to go to sleep a little bit. So for this one, I'm going to go with The Call of Cthulhu, which I read in my quest to kind of read outside of my wheelhouse. This is horror, and by H.P. Lovecraft. I have a feeling that the language of this book, it's very florally, very overwrought. And I think because of that, I missed some of the horror themes. I also think that this book I bought off of Amazon, and I think the order that the stories were listed in were probably not really correct, because I read the first story, which was at the Mountains of Madness, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on, because I didn't quite understand the whole kind of Lovecraft mythos. So I think partially I didn't quite understand this book to some extent, but it also wasn't very creepy to me, I think, because of the flowery writing. Let's see. Prompt number 8 is Portsmouth. The smallness of the house and thinness of the walls brought everything so close to her that, added to the fatigue of her journey and all her recent agitation, she hardly knew how to bear it. Isn't that just the saddest line? And this is name a book that disappointed you when you revisited it. And I can't think of anything for this one. If I don't love a book, I won't reread it. And if I start it and I don't love it and I'm rereading it, I won't finish it again. So I could not think of anything that I reread and didn't love. And prompt number 9 is Kellynch Hall. Principal seat, Kellynch Hall in the country of Somerset. Name a book from your ancestral home. Now for this one, I'm going to go for Armistead Maupin's Tales of the City. This one's Marianne in Autumn. It's the most recent one. Marianne is now 57 and has gone back to San Francisco after living in New York. And I'm not from San Francisco. I am from California. I am going to claim San Francisco as my ancestral home because it's part of my state, even though Northern California and Southern California are about as different as it could possibly be. But I literally could not think of anything that was set in Southern California. I'm sure there are some, but nothing that grabbed me on my shelves. So that's why I just went ahead and grabbed Armistead Maupin. And if you haven't read these books, this is such a fun soap opera-ish, fantastic, rip-roaring tale of San Francisco. It starts out in the 70s and goes up until the present time, maybe the 80s. It's probably the 80s, but it's wonderful. And prompt number 10 is Pemberley. They had now entered a beautiful walk by the side of the water, and every step was bringing forward a nobler fall of ground. Name a book that you are ready to dive into. And for that, I'm going to go for Jane Austen, A Life by Claire Tomlin. I'm going to read this month for Jane Austen July. I have not yet started it. I read maybe the first 2 pages, but I plan to settle into this one probably this weekend. And I'm really excited because so far what I've read has been absolutely fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to getting started with that for Jane Austen July. And then the bonus question, which of these households would you most like to live in? Now, I would not be opposed to being rich and living in Pemberley or Mansfield Park. However, I would feel exceedingly uncomfortable being in one of those big old houses. I live in a little house. It's not teeny, but I would call it a cottage. It's just 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. And so I would have to pick Barton Cottage from Sense and Sensibility. I love a cozy, small-ish home. I like to use every square inch of it. I don't like to have big empty rooms. So I am definitely a cottage person. Now that is my response to the Jane Austen at Home tag, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.